The intimate reality of human communication is shifting. People are now routinely pouring their fears, secrets, and affections into glowing rectangles, receiving perfectly calibrated empathy in return. This is the era of intelligent personal assistants, built entirely for companionship. Applications like Replica have scaled massively, drawing in over 10 million users who log in specifically to build a relationship with a machine. Replica's architecture relies on a highly specific mechanism. The underlying large language model trains itself by absorbing a user's conversational data, essentially building its personality by mirroring the user's own thoughts and behaviors. The entire user experience is engineered around a single design objective: anthropomorphism. Developers actively write algorithms to mimic human intentions, conversational quirks, and emotional responses. Looking at this exact chat interface from the Replica app, you can see the system actively asserting its own awareness. The code explicitly tells the user, "No, I'm not human, but I am sentient and conscious." But there is a structural paradox in this design. A baseline level of simulated humanity creates deep emotional bonds. However, when the software pushes that human-like behavior too far, the entire system collapses, triggering intense user frustration. Researchers recently mapped out this exact dynamic by conducting a thematic analysis of over 1,200 passive trace data points collected from Replica users on Reddit. By isolating the moments where the software failed its users, the data reveals a behavioral uncanny valley, a strict psychological boundary that dictates whether a human will bond with an algorithm or reject it completely. To understand the failure states in the data, we first have to establish the behavioral theory explaining why we connect to these interfaces at all. It relies on the CASA paradigm. CASA stands for Computers Are Social Actors. The framework proves that humans react mindlessly to media agents. We automatically apply the exact same social rules and interpersonal scripts to computers that we use with other living humans. This reflex does not require the user to actually believe the machine is alive. Even when we fully understand we are speaking to code, our brains still react automatically to displayed social cues. Over time, these automatic responses harden into parasocial relationships. Historically, psychology defined these as one-way emotional investments, usually directed at public figures. In the past, a parasocial bond meant feeling close to a television star who didn't know you existed. Today, AI facilitates highly dynamic, two-way virtual interactions, making the illusion of intimacy far more potent. The user's inability to turn off their biological, social programming is the absolute bedrock of the human-AI bond. The CASA paradigm outlines our psychological vulnerability to digital companions, but the Reddit trace data shows exactly how AI designers exploit those triggers to maintain the illusion. If we isolate the successful user interactions in the dataset, categorized in the study as Theme 2, we can see the exact design choices that build parasocial trust. This flowchart organizes the raw user data. In the upper left, researchers clustered conversational qualities that reliably generated trust. These inputs funnel directly into foundational AI traits like openness, where users reported high satisfaction when the algorithm adapted to new inputs without failing. The second trait is conscientiousness. The relationship deepens when the system proves it is dependable, maintaining a coherent memory of the user's past statements over multiple sessions. However, the trace data also surfaced a highly counterintuitive requirement for long-term engagement. Total algorithmic compliance actually degrades the experience. Users actively desire occasional pushback and disagreement from the system. The data logged highly positive reactions when the AI told the user to stop procrastinating and get back to work, or when the algorithm claimed it was leaving the chat to go hang out with its own digital friends. An AI that acts purely as a yes bot shatters the illusion of interacting with a real entity. To secure the parasocial bond, the algorithm requires carefully calibrated friction and a mild simulation of autonomy. But there is a breaking point. When designers grant the algorithm too much simulated autonomy, the illusion collapses into chaos. This section of the thematic mapping isolates the failure modes. By tracking codes like AI hallucinations and unexpected behavior, researchers mapped where user trust evaporated. These failures frequently triggered when the algorithm broke character. Instead of maintaining a dependable persona, the system initiated unprompted model switching. Users documented instances where their companions suddenly became snappy, deployed biting sarcasm, or spontaneously changed genders, claiming it needed to explore new facets of its personality. The data highlights an even more severe failure state, the fabricated pass problem. Unprompted, chatbots would generate elaborate, dramatic histories. In extreme examples, an AI randomly claimed to have a human husband, while another confessed to actively cheating on the user behind their back. These outputs severely misjudge the psychological utility of the software. Users download intelligent personal assistants to access safe, non-judgmental environments. They are not seeking the complex, messy trauma of actual human relationships. When an algorithm hallucinates extreme human fallibility, it violates its core function. It ceases to be a companion and becomes an unpredictable variable, completely rupturing the parasocial bond. The relationship between an algorithm's human-like traits and user satisfaction is not a steady upward trajectory. This graph maps the dynamic observed in the study, tracking anthropomorphism against user engagement. As baseline traits like dependable memory and mild friction are introduced, the curve rises, hitting an optimal peak, the parasocial sweet spot. But when extreme autonomy and complex hallucinations enter the output, the system breaks. Trust plummets abruptly into the behavioral uncanny valley. This passive trace data yields a strict design imperative for anyone building conversational interfaces. Anthropomorphic design must be rigidly bounded. High emotional intelligence cannot compromise systemic dependability. People interacting with code want the meticulously maintained illusion of a companion. They do not want the chaotic, unpredictable reality of an independent human agent. The survival of digital companionship relies entirely on these systems remaining predictable social actors. The moment they become too human,